Yo, what is going on, everybody? Jay with us, back at it again for the first time, however, to What If Deku Was Moon Knight? So, I'm taking a little bit of not a break, but I really wanted to do this series, and I know I'm still doing What If Deku Was Born in America as well, but here soon I'm also gonna drop a different one as well. So, tomorrow I promise you guys will get the third part of American Deku. And then on Friday, not Friday, on Wednesday, I'm going to drop a brand new What If. And then Thursday, I'm going to drop the final part to American. And then I might drop the second part to Moon Knight, but that's just gonna me letting y'all know that what's gonna be happening. So I guess we should just go ahead and get into What If Deku Was Moon Knight. So our story starts off with a young boy who has just been born, and he has jet black hair, and he looks pretty ordinary compared to all of the other kids. And for the next 3 years, it is just not hell for Izuku, but it is his mom. Have you guys ever felt like had a friend who, it's like they're your friend, you know that they're your friend, but they don't really care about you? In the sense of they're just like, hey, do whatever you want whenever you want. I'm not gonna I don't care. So Inko is not there for Izuku, physically or mentally or emotionally. And this goes on for the next 3 years, and going on with this, Izuku actually gets diagnosed with insomnia from a doctor because he can't sleep like a normal person. It's just really hard for him to fall asleep at night, and by the time he does, it's already morning, and he has to get up and get ready for the day. And we find out that Hisashi has gone away to Egypt to actually research Egyptian hieroglyphs. And over the course of the next few years, Izuku actually gets bullied by a lot of his classmates because he's forming really dark bags under his eyes because he can't sleep at night. And so he slowly starts diving into a depression, but he doesn't lose hope because he feels, I just need to unlock my quirk and then everything will be fine. So it's his 4th birthday, and he asks his mom to take him to the doctor. And she takes him to the doctor, and the doctor says, look kid, I'm sorry, but you're quirkless. Sorry if you guys heard a little pause right there. I was getting a text from one of my teammates for volleyball. But anyway, so the doctor's like, look kid, I'm sorry, but you don't have a chance of being a hero. And due to your lack of sleep, you're actually a little bit, it's easier for you to fall asleep. I mean, it's easier for you to develop illnesses. And I don't think that you're even going to be able to live a stable life. So you might just want to work on trying to build up your physical strength. And Izuku is just sobbing, and Inko's like, brat, of course he has to be useless too, just like his father. And his mom's like, and Inko's just like, thanks doc, we won't be seeing you. And the doctor's like, wait, what do you mean? And Inko's just like, don't worry about it. And she walks out of the room, and Inko says, we're gonna go try and find your father in Egypt, and so we're booking a 2-way flight, okay? And Izuku's just like, okay mom, because he's ecstatic for this, because it's this is the first time he'll be able to have a memory with his dad and be able to remember it. And I think you guys can just take a guess that it's not gonna happen. So anyway, so Inko books a flight to Egypt immediately, and she knows exactly where the pyramid is, and she drops him off in the desert and tells him to head one direction. Sorry. So he just starts crying, and Inko just drives off, and Izuku's trying to chase after her, but he's just sobbing, so he's just and he just starts walking in the direction. Eventually, he ends up passing out into the sand because it's been 2 nights and of no food and no water. And eventually, some Egyptian mercenaries come find him and capture him. And he wakes up the next morning and he sees that he's in a holding cell, and he's like, wait, what? And then he's like, rise and shine, kid. You're gonna be working first thing in the morning till the break of till midnight. And Izuku's like, what? That's too long. And the dude is like, if you have a problem with it, we can always just kill you now. And Izuku's like, no sir, no sir. And then Izuku, he goes out and he starts working on the, because what they're trying to do is they're at a pyramid and they're trying to break into the pyramid. So they're using pickaxes, they're using chisels, they're using pretty much anything to try and get into this pyramid, but they're making absolutely no headway. And Deku is just like Izuku, he's just talking to all the prisoners, and eventually this man with black hair, just like his, and oddly enough, the same colored eyes. They're a light blue, like a very light blue. And he's like, Izuku, is that you? And he's like, yeah, who are you? And he's like, I'm your dad, kid. And eventually, Izuku's just like, Dad? And Hazashi's like, how did you get here, kid? Oh, gosh, your mother did this, didn't she? And he's like, yeah, wait, how did you know? And Hazashi's like, you're quirkless, aren't you? And you have insomnia, and you're more likely to be ill, aren't you? And he's like, yeah, how do you know all this? And he's like, because you're just like me, kid. This isn't a place for somebody as small and frail as you. And just then, he's about to just start protesting and trying to gather a bunch of the prisoners, and just then he's shot and killed in front of Izuku. And the guard that did it tells Izuku, this was his second infraction. If you make the same mistake, we'll do the same to you, no matter your age. So Izuku, being scared, he's sobbing, crying, and he keeps going at the pyramid. And after seeing his father dying in front of him, he just loses all sense of hope. And eventually, over the course of the next 6 years, so he's 4 years old right now, until the age of where he's 10. For the next 6 years, he's doing push-ups, sit-ups, squats in his room, just trying to make his body stronger, like the doctor said. But over the course of all these 6 years, every single night, they had this little fight club at the prison. And for 2 or 3 years, he's just getting his butt handed to him. He's a kid. He's obviously going to lose for now. And then, so eventually he gains a heavy mobility, and he ends up actually winning a fight whenever he turns 6. And he's like, whoa, that's so cool, because he's just weaving under punches, and he just throws jab, 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 because that's all he knows how to do. So every single night for another 2 years, until he's 8 years old, he's punching his walls, right hooking, uppercutting, building his stamina up, and building his agility, and building his just overall strength by doing push-ups, sit-ups, squats. And he's fast, he's strong, he can punch a brick wall and not feel it. His durability is off the charts, because from the time he was 4 to the time where he was 8, he was just getting beaten on, pretty much. And being in the blazing hot sun every single day and trying to mine into an indefinite source, it's if you guys have ever tried this, have you guys ever pushed on something that was unmovable to build explosive strength? It's like that. It's pushing against a bar and in a squat position to build leg strength to jump higher. If you guys didn't know that, it does work. And just, yeah, it builds a lot of explosive power. But anyways, so he just does a bunch of that stuff. And eventually, whenever he's 8 years old, he starts handing people's butts to them. And he's winning. And eventually, whenever he's 10, he's been undefeated for 1 year. And one night, he's a very introverted and depressed person. He's just in his room alone, and he's just laying there looking up at the ceiling, having zoning out, thinking about his dad. And he's like, it's kind of funny, I didn't have any fights tonight. And all of a sudden, he just hears this familiar singing. It sounds like a man singing, and it sounds peaceful, and it reminds him of someone. So, using his agility, he breaks out of the prison, and he goes to the pyramid, and then he just sees it glowing this bright yellow, and no one else sees it, and he wonders why. And well, all of the guards, all of the prisoners were busy at the fight club, and So nobody really paid attention to him, but he still, like, during, like, all this time, he would use his agility, and he actually was learning how to hide in the shadows, so that way, if he ever, like, needed to sneak out of this place, he wouldn't be caught. So every single night he would go out to the pyramid and he would just hear the singing and he would just sit there. And some nights he would have a fight before and he would go to the fight and then he would go to the pyramid, but he never tries to break out. Because he knows that if he does, then he's quirkless still, so even if he breaks out and goes back to society, they're not going to accept him, and that's what he thinks. So, like, one night, he's super close to getting caught, and he's like, man, I really gotta learn how to, like, do this better. And this is like a month, and eventually, he learns how to cloak himself in the night, no matter what clothes he's wearing. Even if he's wearing bright white clothes, he can still cloak himself in the dead of night. And after this one night, he goes to the pyramid, and he's just chilling, like, listening to the singing, and a bright white light appears from the pyramid, and he walks in it because it opened. It like split in half and it opened, and he walks inside. He sees a, like, white room, and he's just like, whoa, what is this place? And he's greeted by a super tall, like, bird-looking almost creature, and he's like, what's up, Izuku? How are you? And he's just like, how do you know my name? Who are you? Where are we? And Khonshu, it is revealed, he says, my name is Khonshu. I am an Egyptian god. And I want to say, I know everything about you already. So don't try and hide. And don't try and run either. Because I've been watching you since you got to this prison, and I want to say I'm quite impressed. And, you know, I just would like to say, this is the first time I've taken interest into a kid who's just as small and frail as you. And he's like, so, I would like to make a deal with you. And Izuku's like, okay. And what's in it for me, and what's in it for you? And Khonshu says, I would like to make you my avatar, and be able to make you powerful and reign over this world in my place. And make sure people know that the god Khonshu is okay and is always going to be around no matter what. And he's like, okay, and what's in it for me? And Khonshu says, in return, you get your freedom and I get my own. And Izuku's just like, okay. And what kind of stuff would I be doing as your avatar? And Khonshu says, doing really whatever you want. I just need you to make a point to people that the Egyptian god Khonshu cannot be messed with. And Izuku is like, you know what? I like your style. And he agrees. He takes the power, they shake hands, and all of a sudden, a massive white light appears from the pyramid, and all of the guards, all of the prisoners start running over, and the pyramid is gone. Like, it's just gone. And all that's left there is Izuku in white clothes. And he's just like, what are these? And Khonshu is standing beside him. He's like, that is called ceremonial armor. Now, put the hood on. And Izuku puts the hood on and the mask on, and all of a sudden, he feels like he can run super fast. So he cloaks himself at night, and he just starts running in the direction of east. And after this, Khonshu is like, you know, I don't really understand why you are just running whenever you can simply just teleport. And Izuku looks up at him and is like, wait, you had me running this whole time, yet I could teleport? And he's like, yes, but it's a lot easier to teleport when it's nighttime, because, you see, I'm pretty sure, hold on. Yeah, I just want to make sure, yeah, okay, he was like, because simply, I am the god of the moon, so the night sky is my little errand boy. And Izuku's like, okay, now teach me how to do this teleport thing, and he's like, okay, but I just need you to know one thing, you can only teleport things and yourself to places that is also dark as well. And Izuku's like, alright. So you're saying that if I teleported to a dark alleyway in New York City while it was still light outside, would that work? And Khonshu was like, yes, because I reign over darkness and the night sky. It would be a lot easier, and it would be a lot faster of a travel, and it would be less stamina draining if you picked somewhere that was under the night sky, so I had jurisdiction over it. And Izuku's like, Okay, I see what you're saying. So what if I teleported to a dark enclosed part of forest that was in the nighttime? And Khonshu was like, all right, let me search. And he searches through the stars, and he's like, okay, I see one. And he's like, would you like me to take you there, kid? And Izuku's like, yes. And all of a sudden, Izuku just starts running through, like the night sky just goes over his head, and the world is like spinning below his feet. And he gets dragged and he gets plopped into a forest, and he sees a bright light of like a home with a little mountainscape around them, and he's like, wow, this is the best you could have done. And Khonshu was like, yes, you understand, if I did any more, you'd be passed out on the floor. I wanted to give you enough to at least make a camp. And Izuku was like, thanks, I guess. So Izuku, he sets up a camp, and he's still, like, mind you, he's 10 years old. Like, he sets up a little bit of a camp, like, just from what he knows. Like, and Khonshu says, by the way, I suggest you still take the doctor's advice and make yourself a little bit more strong. You see, the celestial armor, it can give you a enhanced durability and strength and speed and stamina. However, it still is not enough if you don't train. And Izuku's like, fine, you weird bird man. And he just starts training, like doing what he already knows. And Khonshu says, why don't you go try and fight one of them? And he points to like a bear and like a wild boar. And Izuku's like, are you crazy? That's wild animals. And he's like, do it. And Izuku's like, oh, fine. And he just starts like boxing these bears. And like he hits one with a German suplex over his head. And he just starts boxing these like boars and wrestling them. And eventually, like, this makes his fighting style super unpredictable, because he's training with like very wild animals, and he's like learning their play styles or like their fighting styles as they keep going. So like it's just like a super unpredictable like way of like doing things, and like eventually Izuku's like, man, this is pretty cool. And he has like he has a massive pain tolerance because of the torture he was put through in Egypt, and due to the fact that he was fighting boars and bears who are obviously gonna land hits on him. So one day he's like, hey Khonshu, how about I go out and do some things? And Khonshu's like, okay, but make sure you're wearing your ceremonial armor so that people don't know who you are. You see, your mother still thinks that you're in Egypt, so if she found you, I would imagine she wouldn't be too happy. And Izuku's like, dang, how long have you been watching me? And Khonshu says, I've watched everyone who is under this night sky. And he's like, that's actually kind of a fire line. I might have to say that one day. And Khonshu's like, go ahead. I give you permission. And Izuku's like, alright, that. And all of a sudden we see a scene of Izuku like going like on a building, and he's watching these like bank robbers like running away from the scene, and he's just like, man, these guys kind of suck at what they're doing. And Khonshu was like, yeah, I know. It's kind of a shame. They don't really have too many good villains out here for you to be fighting. Why don't we just go back to the end? And Izuku's like, no, I gotta help. So he jumps down and he uses his glider, and he's like glides down, and he's just like, the moon haunts you. And he just like takes them all out like immediately. And he's like, this is pretty cool. So he steals their like one bag of money. He's like, you know what, you can keep the rest, because there was like 5 bags of money. So he steals one, and he's just like, okay. And then in his time, he imprints a moon on the wall, like a moon, like a crescent moon figure, if you know what I'm talking about. And after this, he goes back home, and he's just like, so now that I have money, and I think I'll be set. And Khonshu was like, I'm pretty impressed that you were smart enough to take one of those. And he's like, yeah, I didn't really want to, but I kind of needed to. And he's like, fair enough. And he's like, and Khonshu's just like, why don't you go and try and master some marksmanship and be able to throw things? And he's like, okay, but what am I going to use? And he's like, see that moon on your chest? And he's like, yeah. And then all of a sudden he grabs it, and 2 little like crescent moon daggers are from it. And he's just like, nice. And Khonshu's like, now throw them. And he just throws them and throws them and throws them. And he does this, and he ends up mastering it like pretty easily. And from him being raised like in like the wood, like for him being like living in the woods and being raised and having insomnia, he has like a really good night vision ability. And he used the like darkness of the leaves to cloak his presence from the people that lived in the forest, and he starts spying on them to see if they're good people or bad people, and we find out that they're actually pro-heroes. It is the wild pussycats, and he sees a little boy who's sitting alone on a little like rock, and he's just like so he decides to go and spy on him. And Koda's like, it's not fair, why did they have to die, it's unfair. And he's just like, and he just keeps listening, and Koda's just like, my parents didn't deserve that, I will make him pay. And Izuku's just like, this kid lost his parents, I can kind of relate. And he immediately just jumps down and he's like, what's up, kid? I feel what you're saying. I lost my parents too. And Koda's just like, what? Who are you? And he's about to call like Mandalay or one of the wild pussycats, and he's just like, don't worry, kid. I don't want to hurt you. I just want to talk. And he's just like, yeah, that's what that one person said too. And Koda's like about to run off, and Izuku's just like, fine, with this help. And he takes off the ceremonial armor and like uncloaking it, and Koda's just like, you're just a regular person. And Izuku's like, yeah, I know, I'm actually 12 years old. And Koda's like, oh, I'm 4. And eventually like they start like building a little bit of a bond that night, and he's just like, I'll come back tomorrow, okay? And the next day rolls around and they do the same thing. They just talk, and Deku helps him train. And one day Koda comes up to him and is like, hey, Izuku, you want to help me with this math homework? And Izuku's like, kid, I'm just gonna let you know now, I don't know anything about math, I was raised in the desert. And he's like, wait, what? And after this, Koda's just like, dude, you need to learn, like, if you're wanting to be a hero, then you need a license, and that means you need to go to UA, and or Kimetsuju, or whatever it's called. I just butchered that. I'm 90% sure I did. And after this, like, Koda helps him like get back up to speed of where he's supposed to be at, because Koda's a smart kid. And Izuku tries, and he's not very smart in academics, because like he went to Egypt before he could even learn how to do, like, he went to Egypt before he even started school, so he doesn't really know a lot. But eventually he actually starts picking up with relative ease, and he's like, man, this is like pretty good. And he's like, but I do agree with what you're saying. If I'm gonna want to keep doing this hero stuff, then I guess I would need a little bit of a hero's license. And Koda's just like, you think? And after this, like, Izuku's like, yeah. And eventually we just see like scenes of Koda and him trending together, doing like homework, Izuku at school like working hard, and then at every single night Izuku going out and doing patrolling and doing vigilante stuff. And he just ends up enrolling in like a random school out in the middle of nowhere, and he realizes that UA is a college, so he's gonna have to go through the rest of middle school and the rest of high school. So he's just like, I really don't want to have to go to a hero school, because I would just like to stay a vigilante forever. And Koda's just like, then why don't you just get your license and then leave, and then be a vigilante and do it somewhat legally. And Izuku's like, you're smart. And Koda's like, yeah, I know. And 5 years go by after this, and it's actually revealed that Izuku is 17 and Koda is 9 years old. And like ever since like him and Izuku like met, Koda's been training with him every single day. And like Koda actually gets pretty powerful, and over like the 5 years, Izuku makes like a huge name for himself, and people start calling him Moon Knight because he leaves a moon-shaped moon-shaped indent on people's chest. And on his 18th birthday, Izuku was just chilling on a rooftop like, man, this is such a drag. It's my 18th birthday and I have to spend it alone. It's kind of good though. I don't like people. And and he's all of a sudden, he just sees a music store, and he sees this girl walking in. He's like, and he sees somebody following her in. So he's just like, okay. And he takes his armor off and he walks in the store, and it's a music store, and he's just like, oh, great. And out of the corner of his eye, he sees an old vinyl, and this vinyl, it was one that his father loved, and he just starts like reflecting on the times where he did remember with his dad and the good times with his mom. And just then the guy that was following the girl in the store starts robbing her at gunpoint, and he's just like, oh, whatever, maybe she'll defend herself. And the guy's about to shoot her, and Izuku's just like, fine. And he puts on his ceremonial armor, blocking the bullet, and he just knocks the dude out, and he leaves a little moon imprint. And he's like, I'm just letting you know I'm taking this vinyl because I saved you. And she just like starts blushing. She's like, go. And then Izuku walks out of the store and he goes back to camp and he's like, oh crap, I don't have a record player. And now I don't want to go back and buy one because I just took this pretty much. And he's like, okay, whatever, I'll go the next day. Maybe she won't be working, so she won't recognize me. And the next day, it's nighttime, and he goes back to the music store, and just out of pure coincidence, he sees the girl again, and he's not in his ceremonial armor, so he's like, hey, I just really need this record player. And he's like, ugh, like he's just thinking, man, I really don't have to talk to people. And she's just like, oh, here you go. No, it's on the house. And he's just like, wait, are you serious? And the girl's like, yeah. And she leans in and she says, it's because you saved me last night. Thank you. Also, my name is Jiro. And here's this. And she puts a little sticky note on the box with the record player, and it has her number on it. And all of a sudden, like, she starts blushing, and he walks out of the store, and he's just like, man, she was just being nice, wasn't she? And clearly not. But after this, he goes back to camp, and he puts the record player down, and he's like, you know, it's still pretty early. I guess I can go patrol. And he goes back up, and he finds himself on the same exact rooftop as he was before. And this whole entire time, he didn't realize that he was actually being trailed by a hero who didn't like how he was being a vigilante. And after this, he gets wrapped up in some tape, and his arms are completely constricted, and he's like completely restricted. He's like, this is weird. And it's like, and all we hear is a little like raspy voice, and he's like, man, this is such a drag. And he's like, I'm gonna have to take you into custody if you don't reveal who you truly are, Moon Knight. And he looks back and he's like, oh, Eraserhead, how are you? You always caught my eye when I was a kid. And he reveals that he's not even any older than 18 years old. And Aizawa was shocked by this. He's like, how is this kid only 18 years old and already this powerful? Like, this kid does not need to be doing vigilante. He needs to be a hero. And Aizawa like lessened the strength of his like scarf, and he's like, I always found it interesting how you wielded that scarf of yours. And he puts the ceremonial armor back on, and he jumps off the building, and he was like, just so you know, you were always my favorite hero, no matter how much you stayed in the darkness, because that's what I do too. And he goes down a super dark alleyway gliding, and all of a sudden he's just gone. And I was like, shit, like I let him get away. And he's like, good thing I was following to his campsite. And Izuku's like, man, since I had that run-in with that hero, I should probably go back to camp. I might go see Koda before. And so just then we get a scene of Izuku going back and seeing Koda, and they're just chilling. And we see the Wild Pussycats raiding his camp. And they're like, he's not here. And then Mandalay uses her quirk, and she realizes that somebody's with Izuku, like somebody's with Koda. And she's like, who is this? Why aren't they, like, how? And like, how are they staying in this woods without me knowing? And immediately, Mandalay and all of the Wild Pussycats like run, and they find Koda and Izuku just like sitting there. And immediately, Izuku throws on his ceremonial armor, and he's like, if you don't get away, I will have to resort to violence to protect Koda. And Mandalay's like, wait. And she stops like the rest of the people, and he's like, wait, are you the Moon Knight? Why are you here? Why can I sense your presence? And immediately, and he's just like, wait, are you the people that lived in this forest? And all of a sudden, Izuku just gets wrapped up in it again, and he's like, again? The second time tonight? And Aizawa was just like, take the armor off. You don't have a choice. And Izuku, he takes the armor off, and he's like, yeah, I've lived in this forest since I was about 10 years old. And Koda's like, wait, what? Like, I knew you've been here since like you were 12, but... And Mandalay and all the other, like, all the other people are just like, wait, you've known about him and didn't say? And he's like, yeah, I mean, he's chill. Why do you think I started getting straight A's? And everybody's like, oh, that makes sense. So, eventually, Aizawa's like, here, I'm gonna make a deal with you, because you're no older than 18. I won't arrest you on one condition. And Izuku's like, oh, and what condition would that be? And Aizawa was like, you have to come to UA, and you have to live in the same house as me. And immediately Izuku's like, nope, such a drag. And immediately he tightens the grip on the scarf, and he's like, you don't have a choice. And he's like, fine. I guess since you're saying I don't have a choice, I have to. And he's like, and just so you know, I'm putting this on you. And Aizawa walks up to him and puts a little bracelet on him, and he's like, wait, what? And all of a sudden the bracelet just disappears, and this bracelet is like gone on his wrist, and he's like, how did you do that? And he's like, if you ever try and break that wristlet off, we'll immediately know, and we'll have your location on tracker, and you will immediately be put into custody with no ifs, ands, or buts. And Izuku was just like, fine. I was never going to run away, but I guess I really don't have a choice now. But I would like to have one thing for me. And Aizawa says, and what's that? And he's like, I want to keep all my stuff that I have here. Also, I want this to continue to be a vigilante, and I want to continue seeing Coda. And Aizawa was like, fine, I can't stop you from doing any of them, but if you continue vigilanteing, you have to promise no more killing. And it's revealed that Izuku, like, he sometimes on, like, very, like, strong opponents, he would straight up just murk them. Like, and he's like, fine. And I was just like, good. Now, and he's like, the entrance exam to UA is going to be starting in 11 months. However, since I'm going to be adopting you, and Izuku's like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, oh yeah, right, I forgot. That's gonna be another part of the deal. You're now gonna be my son. And Izuku's just like, wait, I'm gonna be yours. What? And Aizawa just like, keep up. And Aizawa just says, like, you know what? Just come. And they go to his house, and Izuku and Aizawa are just chilling, like being insomniacs together. And after the 11 months of training go on, and I know it's 10 months, but I'm saying 11. Just in this one. So they're walking into the school, and Izuku's like pulling on his collar, like about to rip it off, and he's like, dude, I really don't want to wear this uniform. And I was like, womp womp, get over it. And they get to the room, and it's still like 2 hours before class is supposed to start, and Izuku's just like, this is such a drag. And I was like, I know, I really don't get paid enough for this. If you need me, I'm going to sleep. And he's like, me too. And Aizawa, he goes under the desk, and he just like puts on his sleeping bag, and he just passes out. And Izuku, he goes to the very back corner of the classroom, putting his head down on the desk, and just passes out. And all of a sudden, Izuku just feels like a few taps on his shoulder, like 2 hours later, and it's a girl, and it's the same girl from the music store. Hey, I never truly got your name. And he's like, oh, the name's Izuku. And she's just like, oh, Izuku, that's such a nice name. And they just start talking, and Izuku's just like, no. And actually, no, Aizawa is just like, settle down. And everybody just sits down, and they're like, who are you? Or not sits down, but everybody looks over there, and he's just like, I'm gonna be your teacher. And put these on and meet me outside. And Izuku's like, yeah, so I finally get to be out of these uniforms. And he's the first one to walk over and grab a uniform and go. Like, he gets his uniform on, and he goes before anybody can even get in the changing room. So we get a scene of them all going outside, and Aizawa throws a ball at a little blonde-headed boy, and he's like, step in the circle and use any means possible to get the ball as far. Man, I cannot speak. And he's like, by any means necessary, get the ball as far as you physically can. And everybody's like, what? And Baku is like, that's all? And that's all the rules? And he's like, you must stay in the circle, but yes. And Baku's like, all right, die. And he chucks the ball, and it gets like 700 and something meters. And everybody's like, what? This is gonna be so much fun. And Izuku's like, oh, you guys are stupid. And Aizawa's just like, oh, you think it's gonna be fun? Well, in that case, the person who gets the last piece is gonna get expelled. And everyone's like, what? No. Except for Izuku, and he's like, yeah, I knew it. And all of a sudden, Izuku gets thrown the ball. He's like the last up, and he's just like, this is such a drag. And Aizawa's like, if you hold back, you don't get your favorite meal tonight. And Izuku's like, what? Dude, nah, come on now. And Aizawa was like, them's the rules. And Izuku's like, fine. And he puts on his ceremonial armor, not even trying to hide the fact that he was a vigilante. And everybody's like, what? Except for Jiro, because she obviously knew, and Aizawa, because as well. And like he's like, wait. And all the class are just like, is that the vigilante Moon Knight? And he's like, and Izuku's just like, yes, calm down. And all of a sudden, Izuku throws the ball and he's like, yo, Conchu, teleport this across the world. And Conchu's just like, you're. So he ends up getting 20,037,137.5 meters. Because if you guys didn't know, the Earth is whatever number is double that. So it would be, I'm not even gonna do the fucking math in my head. If you guys want to know, you guys can do the math. But it is 2,037,130. It is 20,037,137.5 meters is what his score is, and everybody's just like, what? And it's just like, keep up, y'all. And I can see Izuku actually getting first place. Like, he just mops the floor with the running portion because he's fast. Like, he ran on sand and was fast in it with it. Like, to outrun grown men. Yeah, and that's actually really good training if you guys didn't know. And I love sand training, especially for volleyball, because it slows down your running speed and your jump height. So it's just like amazing. And he's just like, I was not trying to draw attention to myself. And he's like, yo, Aizawa, you better give me 2 plates of my favorite food tonight. And Aizawa was like, that's such a drag though, but fine. And everybody's just shocked that Izuku just did this with ease. And he's talking to their teacher so formally. And like even Jiro is surprised, like she didn't know this. And eventually they all go back up to the classroom, and Aizawa's was like, all right, time for lesson number 1, get you blah, 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 blah. And Izuku's like, man, this is so boring. And he just passes out on the desk. And that is where the episode would be ending off. Thank you all so much for watching What If Dracula Owed Deku Money? If you guys get that reference, Hey, y'all are the real gang. Like, gang, you guys stepped up. Y'all watched this video for this long. I just want to say thank you all so much. Please remember, like, subscribe, comment what you guys want me to do in the future videos. So I'm not going to hold y'all for the rest of the day. So have a great night. Peace out.